And I remember going to the office and I was just blown away. I walk in and they're playing dubstep.
So then why do you have me in? Oh, we need a bigger facility. No, you just need to throw that shit away and use the space that you have. If you go out onto that floor and you walk it, people go, these people must care. They got a little bit of give a shit about what we do for a living. And if they have a little bit of give a shit, well, I'm going to give a little bit of give a shit. All right. These next couple of episodes have both Tracyann, my wife, who is going to be here with us talking about change and process, and one of the newest hires here on my team, Sam Bradford. Sam came to us from Dutch Bros. If you are not familiar with Dutch Bros, it is a sensation here on the West Coast. Has grown from a small independent coffee shop, I believe in Oregon, to $1 billion enterprise in a very, very short period of time. And much of that reason is the way that they treat their employees. Yeah, they focus on their employees and making their lives easy and fun and making the jobs that they do meaningful and worthwhile. That translates into a customer experience that is second to none. And anybody who's been driven past the Dutch Brothers knows what I'm talking about. There is always a line around the block. There's actually recently been a location here in Arizona that was forced to shut down because of how disruptive it was to traffic patterns in the area. This is a crazy place, Dutch Bros. It is something like you've never seen before. They take a lot of time and patience with their customers. They're not in a rush or in a hurry. They're focused on making the customer feel appreciated. And that only works because the employees feel appreciated. And I think in these next couple episodes, Sam will help break that down for you and how that plays out here at The Process Fixer. Okay, here we go.
You ready? Let's go. Welcome to The Process Fixer. Help you see the bigger picture. Derrick names is the elixir. Cut and waste away like scissor. Woo! Got a problem, he can solve it. He's an expert with the process. So for sure you'll see a profit. Bottom line profit. Analyze the work your people doing every day. Expose the inefficiencies getting in the way. Advise you how to automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, innovate. Now there's more food up on your dinner plate.
We're excited to have you, Sam. For those of you who do not know Sam, which I can't imagine you wouldn't, everybody knows Sam. Sam comes to us just recently. Actually, it was a little bit random. We met about a month and a half ago and had lunch, and Sam was telling me that he was looking. And I was like, if you're looking, I'm finding. And we made it happen. So welcome to the team. We'll put a link someplace, but Sam did an amazing TED Talk about his experience at Dutch Brothers in almost 8 years.
Yeah. Well, I was a youth pastor at a church. I was struggling with my leadership. I was really just lost. I found a leadership podcast, started listening to it. Through that leadership podcast, they interviewed the founder of Dutch Bros. And it was my first experience. I was like, what is this place? And how do I find out more about them? I reached out to the closest store to my house, drove down there and was like, hey, would you guys come talk to my leadership team about culture? Because you guys have something beautiful going on. And the CEO of the franchise that I work for and a manager of that store came and talked to my people. And it was the craziest experience. When they came and spoke, I went straight home and told my wife, Chelsea, I was like, hey, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to go work for Dutch Bros. So at 30, I took the job at Dutch Bros as a broista. And that's not I didn't misspeak there. It's not a barista. It's a broista for everybody. And I remember going to the office and I was just blown away. I walk in and they're playing dubstep. It was a heart for people through and through. It was a heart for our employees. It was a heart for the customers.
Yeah.
And what I did is I just kept knocking on the door of the CEO saying, hey, let me teach a class on leadership. Let me work with these young people. Let me develop them. Let me help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. At the end of 7 months, they sat me down and they said, hey, we're going to create a position called the Director of People Development. We really want you to go out for it. And I ended up not even interviewing. They were like, you're the guy for the job.
And I think culture is really important in companies. And if you create a culture where people want to come to work, they want to lift, they want to do heavy lifting together, you're just going to accomplish a lot. And our objective, at The Process Fixer is not just building a business. It's really about a movement. We just believe that work needs rescued. Like somebody has to get out there and rescue. Somebody's got to throw the little blow up thing out to it on the string. Life preserver, you know. Somebody has to throw the life preserver to it and say, hey, I get it. You feel like you're drowning. I get it that you don't understand. I get it that you're scared and confused. And I'm not just talking about employees. I'm talking about executives too that are like, I can't figure this out. I had a CEO confide in me about a year ago. He said, look, I did $100 million in revenue this year. I'm like, congratulations. He's like, I lost $1 million. How's that work? He's like, all that work to lose money? He's like, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, we have to get in and rescue work. We got to figure out what's going wrong. And sometimes it's highest and best use of time. Sometimes it's underutilization of the talent that you have. Sometimes it's lack of automation. There's lots and lots of reasons for it. But you have to, I tell CEOs this all the time, you should have this rule to physically remove your ass from your seat twice a day and go on a Gemba walk. Get out
Which is what he did for 6 months.
It's what you did, right? You did. You worked for 6 months in the business and you saw the need and then you pitched the role and it came to you. I mean, that is amazing. And that's one of our core tenets is this idea of a Gemba walk. You have to go out and walk where the work happens. Because if you don't, and you try to tell me from your boardroom position, you know what's going on, I just know you're full of it. Like you just don't have a clue what's happening in your business. And I've got story after story in our books about that. I like the story
you tell about when you and your former business partner walked out onto the manufacturer floor with someone from the C-suite.
Yep.
It was so rare for them to be there that you saw people like going like this.
They had hand signals.
And that was management's or leadership's on the floor.
You could see it on the
cameras. They were stretching.
You could see it on the cameras afterwards. One of the guys closest to the door stretched. And then you could literally, when you watched the replay of the camera, you could see other people notifying each other all around the floor. They're like, one of those managers is out here. Because it was such a rare event for a manager to be out where the work was happening that they had to notify each other, like, pay attention, boss is on the floor. And what I had to teach them, they had a team of 12 executives. And I said, if each of you just walked that floor twice a day, that would mean every 20 minutes they would see the presence of management. And look, it's not about micromanaging, not about yelling at people. It's just, people respect what you inspect. If you go out onto that floor and you walk it, people go, these people must care. They got a little bit of give a shit about what we do for a living. And if they have a little bit of give a shit, well, I'm going to give a little bit of give a shit. And then the next thing you know, the production number increases. And that was such a great story. And we talk about that in the Lean Manager's Playbook. You know, we talk about this, that company saw a massive turnaround just by the presence of leadership on the floor. I mean, they broke records in production just by management walking around. No other real changes at first, but just the presence of somebody looking like they gave a shit about the work. Everybody gave a shit. And that's so important, especially now.
Well, I also think they get to see firsthand a challenge. Like why you did this at one of the facilities you worked at. Why are you carrying this battery that weighs 55 pounds, whatever it weighed, from here all the way to the other end of the warehouse? Why are you carrying that? Well, we don't have carts. What do you mean you don't have carts? Had you not gone down there and saw that pain point yourself? So I think it's more about just giving a shit about the work. It's giving a shit about the people doing the work and how they're being forced to do it. Yeah. And the other thing too is I think a lot of people, I'm going to say a lot of people, but I do think that business decisions sometimes are made out of fear. They're fear-based decisions, right? I think one of the things that you did is you're like, yep, this is kind of scary. We're just going to bring this guy in and like, we just know it's going to work. So we hired him. We didn't even know we had a gap. But once he filled that role for us, you know, we were like, wow, it is so glaringly obvious
that we've been missing.
That we had this gap and that's the piece we needed. Yeah. And yes, we're going to hire for the other position. But that puzzle piece just slotted perfectly and had like you not said, there's just something.
Yeah, but I think it's recognizing opportunity. And you have to have, I talked about this with Aaron on the last podcast, you know, you have to have capacity to be able to see opportunity. If your head is down and doing the work all the time, you're never going to be able to truly see it. And listen, I know we've all been in Western management told to believe you have to work on the business, not in the business. That's not all the time. That's not a hard and fast rule for every second of the day you work on the business, not in the business. What we see more often than not in the companies that we work with, up to $1 billion or more in revenue, is that leadership has removed themselves from the in part, and they're so focused on working on the on part that they don't realize that everything fell apart 3 years ago. And they're just like duct tape and bubble gum and throwing people and money at it. And they're going, why are we losing money? Huh? What's going on? We're working on the business, not in the business. Yeah. How about shut up for a second and go downstairs and walk the floor and go, whoa, here's what the problem is. And so those hard and fast rules that we've been beaten into our head, work on, not in, on, not in, on, not in, that's bullshit. Like, you have to have a little bit of both. I love Elon Musk, and I love one of his policies. I call it the DIY. And he says, if management makes a change that's going to affect people on the line, the manager who suggested the change is responsible to suit up and be on the line the day it's rolled out. Work the line, side by side, shoulder to shoulder with everybody else. So when all the people start going, this is a really dumb idea, who's responsible for this shit? Everybody goes, well, here he is. What do you have to say to him? Well, real quickly, you make sure your ideas are valid and worthwhile and are going to hit home. But also it forces you, before you roll things out, to walk down to the floor and say, hey guys, I got an idea. And I don't want to get caught in my pants down here. Is this going to work or isn't it going to work? Can you try it? Can you give me some feedback? That's what people really want. They want to feel appreciated.
Which is a core tenet of change leadership.
It is. We don't call it change leadership though. What do we call it? Oh no, somebody was supposed to email it to us.
Someone's going to tell us.
We've been begging people.
I don't like the word change. Give me a different term.
But we can't find it, right?
You know, I think one of our core tenets at the Process Fixer, we do it for ourselves. And I think Sam's an example of that, although I'll explain what I mean in a minute, but is defiance. And the underlying concept behind defiance is break shit, build shit.
Break shit, build shit, which is like, it's one of our core and we've been really working on this with the Root and River team and trying to get this dialed in. But I love that our, right here at the top of my page is break shit, build shit. And I really almost think it's like break shit to build shit. Like, the truth of the matter is you have to break things down to rebuild them. And if you aren't willing to break shit, this is the sunk cost fallacy that so many people get hung up in. They're like, yeah, but we spent $20,000 for that. But it doesn't work. Yeah, but I spent 20 grand for it. Can't we put it on blocks out in the front yard and let it rot for the next 10 years? No, you got to get rid of that shit. I have this happen all the time when I do tours of facilities. Like, they'll give me this tour and they'll show me all the cool stuff. And then I'm like, okay, what's back there? Oh, no, we don't go back there. We don't talk about that. There's like a tarp, and it's like, what's back behind that? And they're like, well, that's all the stuff we don't want to get rid of because we spent so much money on it and we just can't break it to ourselves. So then why do you have me in? Oh, we need a bigger facility. No, you just need to throw that shit away and use the space that you have. But this idea of breaking shit and building shit is really important because you can't really progress sometimes without going backwards a little bit. You got to step back, fix what you've done, break it down, and rebuild stronger the next time.
And I think that's what I meant by, like, this was part of bringing you in, was that window experience. Because when we realized the gap we had to kind of break our process and rebuild it a little bit by saying, hey, when we find efficiency in a process, we now want to be able to feel part of that with a human experience or with and you and I talked about that a lot. It's, all these ideas started coming when we realized, like, you filled this gap we didn't know we had. And, well, wait a minute. So I can use him in change leadership. Like, plug and play. I see that all day long. But then we started riffing on, like, okay, we find space. We find capacity. So instead of that just being space we found, how do we take part of it and fill it with that purpose and fill it with the quality of life for our customers and their customers, like the customers of our customers. So how do you put in that quality of life? I like that phrase. We had dinner with a couple of friends yesterday, and then he talked to you about it, but he spoke about that quality of life. And I
didn't know what it's really about in the end. It's about the quality of life. Tying people to outcomes is really important. Helping people understand the importance in their work. It's just amazing, right? I mean, it's an amazing feeling. And we regularly, I mean, our clients know this, we regularly find 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% inefficiency in processes. And companies are real happy to recapture that. It's funny because 20 years ago, when I was doing this work, everybody was like, great, I can use it to cut expenses. Now people are like, now I can increase capacity because they don't want to cut anybody anymore. Nobody wants to let anybody go. They're like, I have 5 people here. Finally, I don't want to let them go. Build that capacity in their team, but also taking some of that and saying, let's give that back, both to the employees so that they can be professionally developed. Look, the best way to hire better people is to make the people you have better people. Like give them the ability, send them to workshops, say, hey, we're going to do some leadership coaching and training on Fridays. Would you like to participate? You're going to be really shocked. And I think if you give some of that back to the people, look, some of it should go back to the bottom line. Heck yeah. You made the investment, you should get some back on it. Some of it needs to go back to the employees and some of it needs to go back to the customers. Because we were talking about this earlier. You know, when you tie your outcomes to something that people care about, they participate in that. They want to be a part of that. We've talked about this on another podcast about, you know, the difference between like CVS and Walgreens, you know, and if given a choice, people tend to pick CVS because they're like, but there's a purpose for me going there. Like Walgreens, I'm just making somebody rich. CVS and those kind of companies that do 1% for the planet, you know, if you care about outcomes, which I think in the end, everybody does, right? Not everybody is a price sensitive, price conscious consumer. Some people really care about the outcomes. If you care about the outcomes and you align your organization to outcomes that your customers care about, win-win every day of the week. And I think we just miss that so much. And a lot of it is about not having the capacity. We're just too busy. Like we don't have the time to truly change because we're too busy. So we have to figure out how to make that capacity so that we can be that, can do those things.
All right. Part 2 will be coming up next week with Sam and Tracyann, continuing our conversation around change, how to make it inside organizations, how to make it stick, and how to get your employees on board with that in order to improve the experience for everybody. All right. Until next time.
You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the process fixer. Help you see the bigger picture. Derrick Maines is the elixir, cutting waste away like scissor. Woo! Got a problem, he can solve it. He's an expert with the process, so for sure you'll see a profit. Bottom line profit. Analyze the work your people doing every day. Expose the inefficiencies getting in the way. Advise you how to automate, outsource, abbreviate, eliminate, innovate. Now there's more food up on your dinner plate.